No, Saturday night. Like 10 p.m.
All yours.
Call this meeting to order at 5:17. Notice any changes that need to be made to this agenda? I actually would like to add one if possible, and we talked about in the past, especially with Ann here today, there should be somewhere down the line a spot for any visitors that want to comment.
Should have it right next to guests present.
I can't
Invitation.
read, so it might.
Invitation for guests to introduce. Up at the top.
Oh, there.
So we can stay ahead of it. We know everybody tonight, but there have been nights when we've had people we didn't know, so at least if we introduce them, we're all set.
I just didn't know if there should be a spot where it can invite them to speak. So
Public comment.
Yeah, often you do that towards the beginning of the meeting, of public comment.
right. So that's what I was thinking. Possibly maybe right after we change the agenda, just make another bullet.
Can do.
And we can just invite any guests that are present, they'd like to.
Okay.
Accept.
Motion to accept.
Good to see you, Leslie. Good. With that said, are there any guests that have any comments they'd like to present?
I didn't come prepared to make any comments, but I did have your presentation recently, and I think you guys have done a really, really good job. And I'm really impressed with the work that you brought up.
Appreciate that. All right, with no,
You were here, I'm thinking that folks have it, so I want to make sure folks know. Tom goes way back with us,
I go way back with a lot of people.
because when
He was on a first grade team that Pam put together.
walking, Tom was actually involved when the Highland Green came to be. And so he does have a lot of history back into Topsham with that knowledge, so, and he actually did the facilities tour back a year and a half ago as well, so just want to make sure folks know Tom.
So far back, Highland Green had an 18-hole golf course that I designed that got whittled down to 9. So I moved. Yeah. It's about the real estate.
so I guess without any changes to the agenda, I motion to accept the agenda as is. Second.
I'm sorry. We should review the public, we did have public comment that I shared the email with all of you folks that was sent to us by Mr. Brown. So he had told me he might attend tonight. I don't see him. I don't see him up on the Zoom. But just in case, I just want to make sure that you guys could note that you received correspondence from him. We don't have to discuss it, but I just want to note that the correspondence was received.
Now we can move over to Mr. Mark Lee.
Very good. All right, thank you. See if I can get this to work here. Share.
I think you've got permission to share whenever you're ready. Before Mark kicks off with that, he's not going to do anything with the Legion site because we did talk to the Legion commander And they're trying to get the Legion revitalized, and they're not interested in doing something with that site with us. So we're down to 2 sites to consider right now. The fairgrounds and one you're gonna hear about at the current Forsyth Field area. And the Fair Association has invited Pam and I to come talk to the board of directors next Monday night. So we're gonna go there and see if we can see how interested they are. So
Good,
now
excellent.
it's Mark's.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. So our project schedule, last time we kind of ordered things around, added a few items in there. But tonight we're gonna concentrate on the site and we're going to dig into it a little bit in terms of what are we trying to fit onto the site and how does it lay out on the 2 sites that we're considering at this time. So the 2 sites are, I think, oh, there we go. I think everyone's familiar with them. One, as Mark said, is the fairground site, the parcel, the 22-acre parcel that's shown right next to the connector. And the next one is the Forsyth, which we'll look at both of them in a little more detail, but you can see sort of where they are relative, and here we are tonight, right over. And that gives you kind of just a sense of how close they all are to each other. So, and how close they are to the neighborhoods and density as well. So moving forward, so the first one we're going to look at is the Forsyth site. So the edge of the site, or I'll say the edge of the upper area, the upper field, the banking looking down to the ball fields on Forsyth Road. And you can see some work that was done on some turf on the stakes are identified on the side.
It's all green.
Sliding hill erosion.
There you go.
Got, so that's the sledding hill.
Yeah.
It might be pushback.
Oh, no, it would be above it.
Would be above it,
You'll see,
okay,
yeah.
okay. That's the sledding
That's-
hill.
Exactly, and sort of another aspect of that edge, so you have a plateau at the top, and then it has a fairly steep climb to the lower fields.
Proclamation, if you park in the last parking lot on the left at the rec field and by the kiosk, there is a trail that goes up through that we use for cross-country, and it actually is an old logging road. So it has a lot of history and
So what we did was we took 2 primary site elements, one being the building footprint and the other being parking, a requisite number of parking that matches. And the building footprint we did, so the primary block, and these are oversimplified. I'll sort of preface this by saying these are just diagrams. There's no sort of design to this. We're test fitting. Do these things fit on the site, and without thinking much more about how big they are and how we generally might lay them out on the site, but there's that's about as far as it goes with that. And so the primary block that I outlined is the 20,000 square foot footprint of what our base building would be. So that's imagining that it's a 2-court recreation facility with meeting rooms, administrative areas, and it sort of was the primary question that we asked everyone. The other larger, almost looks like a square, that represents the competition pool, the square footage for the competition pool. And then the smaller one is the square footage represents for the recreation pool. And then all of the commercial kitchen, all the other spaces that we identified as extra are in this piece right here. So what we wanted to do by that is say, well, if we were to look at a full expansion of the project with everything in it, would it all fit in? So maybe it's not all built at once, but maybe it grows over time. I want to make sure that we have enough space for it to grow. And you can see on this the existing T-ball field and lacrosse field right here. So we have Thomas Ave right here. The access drive right now comes right through there with a gate. That's right there. And right now the parking that sort of informal parking area is right here right now. And you can see these yellow lines that indicate the slope. And so those are, Tom, are those 1 foot or 2 foot?
2 foot.
2 foot, okay. 2 foot contour, so you can kind of see how those all stack up right here. And so here's the current parking off of Forsyth Road. And what we're showing is if we brought the access drive in off of that parking, so you have the same access to the complex off of Forsyth, but you would then access the upper area from this access drive coming in. You'd have parking right here next to the field, so that you could access field events, or you could access the community center right from that area. It pushes the complex so that we have a very significant buffer. We're maintaining a very significant buffer from the abutters on both Thomas and on White. And so it sort of keeps it sort of compact down in that area of the site itself. And then you could even imagine that this parking connects over and either we assume or subsume this parking as part of that parking. But then you could also have emergency egress or ingress from the site right at that location. We have water on Thomas, 8-inch, I think, right? On Thomas. And I believe you confirm, Pam, that we have sewer on White that we could access via maybe Old Farm if we went up on that side, or may be that we find it works to use the pathway down to Forsyth, down to this area. Here's the Legion. I think everyone knows is right here too. So we would tie in perhaps to sewer right down in that area. I will pause.
In credit to these guys, I never pictured it there. This morning when they shared this with us, it was like, all I can think is the neighborhood's gonna go wild, there's gonna be no buffer, we're gonna be squished in, we're gonna lose field space, but it's kind of amazing when you look at it in that perspective that it could fit. Is it the best place?
Grown up
Up
right there, I'm having a hard time, because it doesn't feel when you're in that space between those two neighborhoods, it doesn't feel like there could possibly be enough room, but looking at it on the
You were
map.
on Arbor, weren't you?
Yeah, I grew up in the Arbor
Arbor.
neighborhood.
Is that area pretty level? It's not
Yes,
hilly
no, thank
there?
you, yeah. And this is LiDAR, the state, I believe, right?
Yes.
And so you can see contour lines through here. It is relatively flat area, which makes it pretty attractive in terms of developing the building path.
And what do you project for number of parking spaces for something of this size?
Tom, go ahead.
We had, we looked at the ordinance, and the ordinance has a provision of 1 space per 500 square feet for a community facility. We looked at other centers that we have done, and the ratio is more like 1 per 300 square feet. So for this, we would use something in the order of 1 per 300 square feet, or based on actual usage numbers.
So is that 145? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's a lot of spots for that stuff there. That's shocking.
What is the acreage up there available?
So that's an interesting question. So the total lot is, I want to say 37.
Yeah.
And so if we were to take out what the lower area is, that's probably about a quarter of that. And so if you were to imagine, I don't know, somebody's probably doing the math faster than me, but that takes about 27 or so acres off of 4 times 9 is 36 on that, right? So it's my head doing its math there, so.
Mark, did you make that access road from the lower parking lot because the lower parking lot is there, or was there another reason? Would it?
Yeah, we asked them to do
How
that.
about?
Yeah, well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I understand that from Thomas, but what about making the road shorter and going more up the hill from like the left-hand
Yeah,
corner, like just off of White Street?
It's over in
Yeah,
this
like-
area, right?
Well,
There.
like right in there and
Yeah.
even a little to the right,
Okay.
My concern there would
cutting into the
be
field.
the slope
Mhm.
to have a safe way to get up to, and that corner pulling out.
Hmm.
If
Yeah,
looking
that's
left
true.
in a side view.
Yeah,
We also might have to go back to Land for Maine's future too, right? If we did that part.
We'd have to go, well. the
Or not
way-
Land for Maine's
no,
future, the
No, we're
federal.
not on,
Oh,
Kathy, I'm looking at you, you're listening. The upper field was not built with any state or federal funds. So any changes we make, am I right, Kathy? My knowledge.
You're muted.
You're muted, bottom left of your computer or phone.
But you already had the parking lot released, which we haven't had the lower part released,
Yeah,
right? So
Yeah. The parking lot on the far right off of Forsyth, when we built the tennis courts at the high school, that released us from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, because we had tennis courts there that raised up with the water table and went down. So the upper field, to my knowledge, and I know she can't speak with us right now, but I'm sure she'll text me if you can. The upper field was done all with community funds.
but the question, Pam, is would we have to go back to them if we move it? Because we're
I
using a
don't
different
think so,
part of the
Mark,
board.
because we own the land. We only got their money to build. So unless we disrupted the ice rink that's there. But again, I go back to White's, I know how dangerous it is to get out of White
Yeah.
Street and Old Farm. I don't know if we want to be going out there.
Side of the curve. with
Yeah.
the-
Yeah.
In proximity to.
Yeah.
It should be noted that this is diagrammatic in the standpoint that the driveway going up beyond the parking lot will not go perfectly straight.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna need to angle slightly to accommodate, so
And build into the slope.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, almost where we saw some of that flagging first few images there.
How much distance do you have between, like, the top, when you hit the top of the slope and where the projected road is?
That,
That.
yeah, this is probably shown at, it's actually a fairly decent amount, I would almost say 30 plus feet.
The road is 24 feet and it's drawn to scale 24.
Imagine that that's, and the old wood trail, that comes through. The one thought is that we kind of maintain a portion of it on the side of this access drive too, so we want to maintain, and then maybe a crossing as that trail system comes up through, so.
Is there any world, and this is way out there, that you could consider that to be flipped and community center down on the field and the fields move up top?
Then we'd be in trouble with LWCF, because the basketball court, the baseball field, and all of that area was built with LWCF,
You mean,
land, water, and conservation.
Steve, are you, yes, all that development down there?
Yeah, and
Okay, yeah.
to build the fields up top altogether.
Yeah, and it's a process of conversion to get that moved. It's not-
That's what I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Yeah.
that you-
Yeah, it's a time consuming process. They have to evaluate the value of the recreational value of what you're putting in place to make sure that it offsets what you're taking away. But you can convert.
I think the bad thing about putting all the parking across Forsyth Road would be everyone's got to cross Forsyth
Yes.
Road to get to
Yeah.
everything.
Well, I see the only bad part about this is the single way in. And it just seems like it would be a
Take a lot of
traffic and
Yeah.
driving nightmare to me personally.
the kids are always there sledding, do you want them abutting the road?
I think
Closely.
that's when fencing and things like that would have to be built into the scheme of things.
I think you'd want to access it for sledding too from the lower field as opposed to from the community center, because you don't want kids crossing the community center driveway, I think, when you're like, so.
But there are a lot of kids in that neighborhood too, so they'd be coming from that direction anyway.
there is room to even shift that slightly north, that access drive, so there's a little wiggle room here.
It's just so hard to picture.
When they showed it this morning, I was baffled.
It's an amazing
The,
option.
the good thing about that site is you're close to a lot of kids, you know, you've got a bunch of neighborhoods
It's
right
still
around.
walkable for.
Mhm.
it.
So,
The other thing that stands out to me is the fact that a lot of what we've said along the way is that if we build a community center, then they want other things like a walking trail and now you're putting it right where the fields already are, the basketball courts already are, the hockey rink in the winter already is, so it's right,
Oh, it'll bring more people to those fields.
drive a lot more traffic on Forsyth Road too. Already very busy on a Saturday.
So, we just, in part of our due diligence, just looked at what, the zoning requirements are. I mean, I think with everything that we're showing, we're well within any of the dimensional requirements of the zoning, of the current zoning. And I can't imagine it's gonna change that much. It's in an R2, which, I think, community use is, a permitted use, not conditional, I think, or is it conditional?
No, it's conditional.
It's conditional.
Which is a permitted use, but it
Yep.
requires more review.
So, so that's the good news there. Like we said, it does have access to water and sewer. And power, the challenge would just be figuring out how far we'd have to draw three-phase power to that site. So that's the first one. Let's see. So the second one that we looked at is the connector road. So, and this gives you kind of an indication of the vegetation or the topography of much of the parcel that we're looking to develop. This is on there's sort of, I will show you in a minute here, but there's sort of the clearing where you come into the site off of Community Way, and you can see the fairgrounds site as on the right-hand side of this image. And then there's a more dense zone of evergreens, and then on the other side of that dense zone of evergreens is the previous picture that I had shown. And so, and then we were traipsing behind Troop Leader Waltz on our exploration of the site, and I think he was several pieces in front of us.
He certainly was.
But we made our way down to the
Get lost, didn't you?
Exactly. So and it was much warmer day than now, but we made our way down to the railway line, and so this is kind of where it comes out. We'll expose that a little bit more on the site plan, but this is the overpass from the connector. You can see that was constructed, and so this is our first. We get a couple options to look at or consider. So that overpass structure is right in this area right here. So we were right there as we looked through it over to the other side, going north, and then to the south. We saw that picture looking straight down as well. And so that's kind of where we are. You can see, as I discussed, there's this sort of dense zone that is not on the site of the parcel that we're looking at. That it's on the fairgrounds parcel, and you can see the sort of the very stark line where the vegetation just changes, and that aligns with the property line, and that clearing area that we were showing in that image sort of is representative of the vegetation in this area. You can again see the yellow lines from the contours, those 2-foot contours, and you can see it's a relatively flat site as well. You see there's some slope as you get close to the connector itself, and then at the stream here, you can definitely see how it slopes down and that stream that runs through, right through this area. And so it does actually have an impact because it comes right into the site itself. You can see that the boundary line comes right down here, on this area right here. Community Way, over on the left-hand side of the image, the football field, right here. And then you see the edge of the track over here. And so that that culvert over the stream is right there, that kind of bisects the fairgrounds land. And so this option shows us connecting the access drive on the lower edge, closer to where a lot of the activity occurs for the fair, and coming across their land at this location over to parking area here. And again, the same complement of building footprints here. And then again, we're showing just some access down to that lower area right there. But you can see this outline of setback from the stream, from the upper edge of that, and that maybe Tom, what was that setback that we used?
75 feet.
75 feet. Okay. And so the thought with this is that you put parking a little closer to where it could be a shared resource during the real high impact use of the fair, potentially, or also the idea that perhaps the community center itself can be a resource for exhibits or something during the fair. So there could be some shared community use in that regard as well. And you can still see that there's plenty of room for growth on the site north of where this is shown as well. And so access to utilities, water, 12-inch main up by the football field, just a little bit north of the football field. It's actually a little higher than where my cursor is now, which my cursor got stuck for some reason. But, so it's a little higher than that. It's probably up around here for water. That's a 12-inch main. So plenty of water there. We would have to bring it down across at some location and then get it to the site. I think of any other salient bits of information here. Obviously this would require some type of an easement through the site to get access to the landlocked parcel, but it's a fairly, there's a little bit of vegetation as you get closer to the connector, but there's a good chance that you have some good visibility from the connector to where the community center is as well. So as people are driving by there, and it kind of keeps traffic on this edge closer to the sort of southern edge, although I think what we were talking about is likely that, I think, Mark, you mentioned that they probably would want some way of controlling, and so most people are coming up off the bypass and coming down Community Way from the lighted intersection there to access, and not driving so much traffic in the other direction. I think that's what we kind of
right. One of the things we had mentioned when Pam and I were first talking to them is that they don't like people using the Fair Road as a cut through from the bypass to Elm Street. So it would be, I think, more attractive proposal to the fair if we said we'd keep our access off Community Way.
questions on this layout or comments before we move
Now
to?
I see that there's no way for there to be a four-way at bypass road, right? Or is that? Bypass road goes to Middlesex,
I mean, straight across.
where the stoplights already are.
I would doubt it
Um,
because it's a controlled access highway.
I'm just thinking for
What
traffic.
do you mean
Yeah.
at the top?
No,
Down.
right below here, there's
Yeah.
there's a stoplight right
Yeah.
here, and this is called bypass road. It goes to
Oh.
Middlesex, and this goes Brunswick over the bridge. And I was just thinking, because you're looking at an entry point here, which looks like it would only be a right-hand entrance.
Is that lower?
Because this is
I almost think it's forward.
It might be all the way down there, yeah,
Because that's still Bunny Lane here. So it's gonna be past our property.
right, which looks like you can only access that from a right-hand turn. You can't have, I just don't see them
And
running a stoplight then another stoplight.
That's intended strictly for access to the church.
Yeah, that.
Oh, that's not an
that
entry to
real-
the.
Correct, we were just thinking it's drawn as a much wider, but the reality is that it would likely just be a, access point from the rail trail. Up to the
Okay,
areas.
all right.
Because Matt Eddy of Midcoast Council of Governments, who's willing to help us try to look for funding for some of this stuff. He thinks that the trail combined with this is a good hook that could get some funding. So that's one of the reasons for making our parking lot have a connection to the trail, is so that people could park in our parking lot and use the trail.
Trail is where
And it,
the graffiti where you were showing.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, yeah.
probably less graffiti when we're actually there all the time, but there is a little nice fire pit underneath the overpass too right now.
Well,
But they need a place for the trail to kind of land in Topsham.
Yeah.
And it's not really great to land at Elm Street, because right now that's where it goes over Elm Street. And the way the trail works is it's rail, or it's trail until rail, so they don't actually give up the right to put the train back later.
Yeah.
Practical matter, they probably never will, but it might make it harder to get a road across it, or we'd have to, but I think the light that's existing is too far south of this.
Did you all talk at all about how kids from schools will access these two properties?
One of the advantages of this site is if this trail happens, we're currently doing engineering work to put sidewalks on Tedford Road. And we've got engineering just about done to redo the culvert on Tedford Road. It's going to be wide enough for, and include sidewalk in that. So that Highlands are right now, Audubon is emergency access for our fire trucks to get into the Highlands. Eventually, I expect the Highlands is going to want that to be more than emergency access and maybe a public road. So if that happens, and of course, we still need the developers that have Parliament and Congress to fix that up and offer it to the town. But now what was Mountain Road, it's now K&M at the end of the housing, all the way to Village Drive is a town road. Village Drive is obviously town road. So if Audubon becomes a town road, long range, we could have a nice connection between the schools all the way to this facility into the rail trail and stuff. So the other thing this gives us is we have $400,000 sitting that the Highlands paid as part of one of the credit enhancement agreements for the TIF. It was supposed to help get across 196. Originally, it was contemplated as an overpass or something at Village Drive. Now we're thinking a heck of a lot cheaper than an overpass to use the underpass. So we use the rail trail to get under the railroad to get people there. And then we've got potentially 400,000 to add to this project too, if we did it that way. It's a little longer trip.
Yeah.
But well, actually not really a longer trip if you come to community center. I guess it's a longer trip if you just wanted to get to the other nice thing about this piece is, it's probably you all know, we've got this trail that goes from outside of just across the street here, goes behind what was Wright Pierce, and it ends at the top of Community Way. The vision, and part of the reason I think some of this land was given to the town at one point was to connect where that ends down to the Brunswick bike path. And then there's another group that's working on connecting that to Bath.
Yeah.
So this site, or the fairground site, is really a central piece in connecting all these trails and properties together, and could make a lot of nice bike and pedestrian access for the whole town.
Now that trail mark that it goes across from that's where the old ball field was right there.
So it gets you to basically right to here. So the built part goes kind of in some wood and along the stream up to here. But that comes across here back.
That sidewalk comes down Community Way up to about that sidewalk ends somewhere around there, I think.
Yeah, and then if the state might be, because I think the state owns this piece, and then the fair owns this piece, as I recall. But I think part of the reason they kept that too was that probably the best way to do that trail would be to extend it along through here and then across our property and have it connect to everything. So there's a lot of neat potential, a lot of pieces and a lot of would have to fall in the right place, but there's a lot of neat things that could happen with the fair piece that.
So that was that was looking at a scenario of that. Again, we looked at just the dimensional requirements and the mixed use limited, which this is also a permitted use for that as well. So that worked fine. And then we looked at just an alternative. What would it look like on the upper portion? And so it looks if we put the access drive right off of the one that edges already on the side of the football field and then comes straight across and the parking here. It just sort of flips the development, if you will, on the site itself. Longer stretch to get down, but it's actually kind of a pleasant stretch right there. And so you can imagine a nice trail going through there. And Pam would go with us this time on that list. So, but
Beautiful pictures of the artwork that's down at the tunnel.
I like that. And so this is just another way of looking at it. It's, where it stays a little bit further away from the fair itself, stays away from the slopey area near the stream. So just a different way of looking at positioning it.
Less of a want to enter from the other side also, except Sundays would be a disaster in the fall.
Right, it would be
Faithful is,
Those cars
it's a
come
mess.
Yeah, all along
over in
that,
every which way.
yeah.
The reason we thought we would have these two drawings is so that we go to the fair with options, you know, because if it's more important to them to keep us kind of on a corner of the property, then this one might have. On the other hand, if it's more important to have the shared parking or the ability to kind of integrate the building into the fair during that week, then maybe the lower one's better. And so I think our message when we talk to them is basically that let's look for a way to make this win-win and see if there's something that they like. And
Mark, which one do you think has the more possibilities for
it was-
expansion?
It was interesting, just real quickly, Steve, back on, and the point that was made. I mean, one thing I think we talked about is the likelihood that you'll want to probably pave and improve that leg right there. So it may be that when you do that, you can either set up a little bit more intentional parking, so you try to keep people off of that, and so you're in good shape in that way. The idea that of which one provides, the nice thing is that there's so much developable area here that you have. Both of them are reasonable. And you could even imagine you still, even in this scenario, preserved all of this area right here for something that field or some other use that's still available to you. So, you know, I think it's what it doesn't do is it provides the parking and connectivity to the fair activities. It's just more remote, and so there's less chance that anyone would likely use it as much. But in some ways, both are not that visible from this side of the lot. I mean, that's a very, very dense area right here. So you're not gonna, there'll be a little path through the woods, it's gonna feel like, so you'll arrive at this center here. It'll be far more visible on the bypass than it will on the other side of it. So so proximity may help, but it won't be visible from the community way. So both are easily expandable and preserve portions of the site. Tom, I'm giving.
We had discussed the fact that the northern version splits the fairground property, and Mark had indicated that really wouldn't be a problem, if I'm not mistaken. And then the south access keeps all that land contiguous.
Yeah, creating the easement here divides the fairground lot, which sometimes is less attractive because then you've segregated out, you know, this portion up here becomes less usable because it's not contiguous to the other large area, so what you can do with it becomes perhaps limited, and we even looked at an option where do we bring the access drive here and bring it along the northern boundary of the site so that you do keep that contiguous. We even floated the idea, do you try to put it in between, going right along the edge of the property boundary? And ultimately, we said, well, let's show it the shortest, most direct, and I think someone even suggested that they were looking at one point of maybe developing this into field, so that still provides them an opportunity to grow it that way. But a lot of flexibility to where that access drive goes, and I'm sure they'll have strong feelings about where they pursue.
And the nice thing is, I think you can kind of work with wherever they want it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, that area that you just had your arrow on, Faithful does use that during practice nights, that area.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, where the road goes through, but if some trees were knocked down for them, they were able to use that
Other area.
area up higher.
Yeah.
What is above the football field? North of the football.
Yeah, that's, we were just talking about, basically.
Yeah,
back-
they-
This is that state wetlands. This parcel is owned by the fair.
That's the other thing, so on all of these, what we haven't done, is looked too carefully at wetlands. And so that's the piece of information that we're trying to get some information on. It's likely that, I don't know how much of it may even have been mapped in the past. The connector drive may have looked at some portion of that parcel for wetlands when they did it, but so that's just a layer of information that we're on both parcels right now. Tom, do you have any?
No, that's true.
Right now, the state is working towards, or at least they're saying they're going to widen 196 to 4 lanes all the way through. Yeah. Which I don't think it would affect our site too much. It already is here, but it may affect, like the state may end up using some of this.
Yeah, I think that just means that they wait longer at the next, than stacked on the bypass.
Back when this land was given to us was when we were doing a Topsham trail study. And we actually looked at having a similar to what Brunswick has, the Androscoggin bike path. That kind of came across and along that property and went down through with an overpass where the train trestle, where the coastal connector goes over, actually having a lane for bicycles there that went down and under and brought people back up on the bridge and across to the bike path. The gentleman at the time from the state, John Balicki, who was in charge of bike peds back then, said, this is the last piece you want to do. You want to piece everything else together, which is why we have the wide walking path all the way to the fair and why we have the trail to the Maine Health. So these are all connected. And then that was the last leg that would bring everything together, but the most expensive one. Which I think is some of the fact why we were given the land in the deed that we had from the state.
So that's where we're at right now in terms of just exploration of these two parcels. And I think it was as we started laying things out, we just felt like there's lots of opportunity on the two of them without feeling too encumbered or too sort of hemmed in. So they both had a lot of promise. And next steps would be to continue to sort of get more and more information. What would be the how long would the utility connections be? Where's the best way to connect them? The degree to which we can find any wetland information without expending a lot of cost to have a soil scientist go out and look at them. We want to see if we can find any information available. And just to give us some sense of what we might be looking at. And then the other things that we haven't looked at from a site perspective are if you're adding impervious, then you've got to treat that impervious. And so we just size up approximate treatment areas for the treatment of stormwater or impervious. So how we would deal with that. So those are some of the next steps in looking at the parcels that I think they both show a very different idea of where the community center might plug into the community.
I'm just curious, Mark, who maintains Community Way? Like for plowing in the winter time and stuff?
It's a private road, so the town doesn't do it
The
currently.
town doesn't do it, so assuming that would potentially change if we went with the
Right.
site.
So like, we don't own the road that goes to the dump. That's a private road.
Okay, yeah.
But we have a right of way to use it. We maintain it. So we'd set up something similar to that.
Well,
Maybe, but they might not like it if it was going all the way to Elm Street and it meant regular traffic going through.
That's where they keep storage in their
Right,
buildings
which
and all
keep
sorts
that
of.
dirt and
Yeah,
keep the rough paved.
I think we may have to get further than that. They aren't gonna want people cutting from Elm Street up in.
Like maybe part of what might be sticky is the driving in and thinking more about the road to get to it. And that's why I was asking about the lot that's north of it, you know, and I know the wetlands, but I just wonder if we could get a road that's up higher to just not deal with the basic traffic. That's could get complicated.
So that the use of that primarily fall weekends.
Right.
Saturday and Sunday.
Afternoon
Not quite as bad
practices.
as Foresight.
But that's a lot smaller than it was. I mean, it used to be 300 kids were in the league. Now it's,
110.
yeah. And it's one of those things, if you build it in a real road, it's easy enough to mark off where the road is so people can't park on it and stuff. So.
Kathy, you have a hand up on the screen. Is that still?
Yeah, I was just wondering which of the designs is the most visible from the bypass, the upper or the lower design?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I'm trying to think from an elevational point of view. Almost.
It's highest where the overpass is. So I'd say probably the upper design is
Yeah,
more visible.
probably.
And parking can be configured in such a way that the building is more prominent.
Right.
Essentially, the way we described it initially is if you're heading south on the connector, since the parking is on the north end, you're gonna have to look over your shoulder to see it. And then if you're coming from the south north, the building will screen the parking and the building is more dominant in either direction.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear that, Cal?
I did, thank you.
Do you think that's a good thing to have it visible or a bad thing, Kathy?
I think it's great to have it be visible from the bypass.
Since you're there, Hillside, when Bruce Moore built that was all done with town funds, correct? That wasn't LWCF?
I believe you're correct in that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Music, you can see it.
Mhm. Yeah, so interesting, what's in this would, so the right of way, you certainly need the an easement out to community way, but then I guess you negotiate access.
We need it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, we need it basically all the way.
all the way, yeah,
Yeah, we need to come all the way down.
yeah. Over.
That would all get paved then.
So it'd be cheaper.
It depends what's negotiated, but I think we'd want a paved road go to our community center, especially if we have to plow it.
Now, when you have the parking on the top, is that what you?
Yeah, we haven't actually, yes, north is up, but we haven't, we can call it the north side, I guess. Yeah. And even on that one, it can even shift a little further north too, on the site.
And is it the kind of thing, this is probably getting too detailed, where parking could go closer to the football field and then the building itself could be closer to the road for visibility and
Absolutely,
That can all be
exactly,
shifted, right.
that all that, this is,
Yeah.
yep.
general
Imagine
idea?
taking these pieces now, we
Yeah,
shift them around. Relatively flat, you can see again where the slope pieces are just a little bit more here, and then you start to see how they get a little more dense right through this area right here, but by and large, if you look at the slope over the distances we're talking about here, very, very flat.
Someone was telling me, I can't remember who, that part of the reason that was lower, like where the building is because some of that material was used to build the road with. It was harvested from there.
Yeah, and you can, and we were almost seeing some evidence of that when we were walking to see where they maybe scared a portion of the earth. So that's where we're at right
Very
now.
nice.
So
Thank you.
thank you. Our next steps are to dig a little bit further now into the programming of the building itself. So our next meeting will cover some of that, the building programming that we've talked about and get us down and map it out. I think probably one of our next planning sessions is figuring out some of these visits that we're talking about, trying to get those done so that we can understand as we're thinking about these program pieces, what does it really mean in terms of what you can do with them and how much it costs to develop them and also maintain them. So that would be very important. So our next meeting on the calendar? So I think. So that concludes this portion of
The show.
Thank you.
Building is closed on the 11th. It's the 18th and the 25th. 25th is the week of Thanksgiving.
We either, I vote for the 18th.
Is there any wiggle room going any earlier or is 5:15?
Right now, I could go earlier on the 18th. What time?
Well, I'll be starting practices at 6:00. No, our tryouts are actually the week before.
That's the day we're talking about.
Oh.
Actually, the 18th downstairs, we've got the comprehensive plan implementation committee starting at 4:00. So that room would be booked.
But this room's available.
It appears it. And actually also, yeah, that book's all night because then at 6:30 p.m. downstairs is the climate action plan community workshop number 2.
18th.
Sounds like it's.
We have to be up here.
We'd have to be,
You could be up here though. No.
we can meet, we just have to meet up here.
what
Yeah, I
time,
would
what's
be-
the earliest you can meet?
I have a wiggle room in that afternoon. Like, how early, Steve, do you want to meet?
What if we did 4:30? What time do you want to meet?
Well,
My tryouts are 5:30.
Yeah. So it is that day.
No, it's the 18th.
Okay.
so the 25th,
Okay. Essentially. I can do the 25th, it would just have to be at the 5:15 time.
Okay, I think we're good.
Go ahead.
Does that work for you, Steve?
Yeah, I'll probably have to leave.
you're not practicing after school.
Very good. So we'll, like I said, we'll look to schedule the community center visits now that we're back in the swing of things here. I was out for a little bit, and we'll see if we can get these organized and report on some of that progress, as well as the discussion about the different components of the community center itself, and then the outline of setting up the design charrette.
Are there any, I don't have a school calendar on my phone. Are there any days off other than the, like Tuesday and Wednesday before Thanksgiving or Friday? I know we have veterans, they have Veterans Day off, but there are no other days off in the month of November.
Election day.
Oh,
Election day.
There's a day off.
yeah,
This year,
schools are
yes.
closed.
Not always, but I think, I'm assuming it's because it's the presidential.
The high school I know is closed that day.
Unless your parents voted early.
That might not be a bad date. I'll have to reach out to South Portland, but that might not be a bad date, except I don't know if South Portland uses their recreation. Those things I don't know. Let me make some calls or emails tomorrow morning, and I'll see if Anthony can get us in.
That would be great.
That's next Tuesday.
Already.
South Portland Community Center, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a
Is it a
location
election?
for.
It is. I have to forget that.
If it is because it's private and not a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you wanna
Yeah.
reach out to your?
I guarantee that'd be fine if we want to do that. So I'll look to see if we can comment on that.
Tentatively hope to go to Waterville for the Alphon?
Yep.
I've been a couple of times, I just haven't heard from somebody there, but we'll see. It'll be a game day decision.
If you can schedule it after 10.
Yeah.
That would be great, because I have a dentist appointment at 8.
I'll do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Depends on how fast she does.
40.
40 for me now.
Just so you know, me's being recorded. Your Honor, I never speed. Really.
So that covers number 4 and number 7, our community center visits and information on the community. So I guess that also includes your next action steps, and somebody has something else to add in there also.
So I had the community center piece here, which was the reviving the tours, which we just covered. So I have the next action steps for Pam to follow up with South Portland, and Mark Lee's gonna follow up with the Waterville for setting up some tours. And then we had also talked briefly last time about starting to compile some of that information. I know Kathy sent out a big long list of notes that she took from different sites. And I don't know, I just was gonna add a note here. I don't know if any of that's happened.
I started a chart. I haven't gotten a ton done on it yet, but I emailed a portion of it to Lynn earlier today. I took the amenities that people had said that they wanted from our survey and put it, down the side, and then listed a bunch of the community centers in the area with the distances from this address.
Okay.
And then, checked off ones that I knew each place had, figuring that we could fill in the rest.
Okay.
Depending on the location. And then I had talked about talking after the meeting.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
to go to fill it in even more.
Is that something you guys would want to share with the group next time, or if you guys are able to do tours, maybe? I think that's what my second piece was, so.
And I, so far, I had also gotten onto a lot of the websites and just looked at, what they listed as amenities too, figuring at least then we've got the various things. Yeah, so.
The hard part I found was with CAST, it was very hard to get your hands on an operational budget. It all runs. South Portland, Anthony assured me he could have something like that. He was just headed to the national conference, so that's why that. So,
Does that include the pool?
that's all. I emailed him for visiting, possibly. Which probably sounds like we won't be able to do till December, just because of everybody's schedule. But I will ask him about an operational budget.
What about the afternoon of the 26th of November? I know you were asking about school schedules, that's a half day.
Is that Tuesday?
Tuesday. Then, I know. I think that's the week. That's for elementary. Not as unofficial.
I know,
for
mine's
elementary.
on the 21st, but yes,
Yeah.
I think they go through.
Tend to do that week, yeah. But I know Tuesday is a half day, and then Thursday, Friday, and then Thursday, Friday. Not good days, but.
That's Tuesday. I'm not sure if I can do it.
Yeah.
And I can follow up with you guys as we get closer to the next meeting to see if you want it on the agenda. Just keeping everybody in the loop.
I will send out tonight's presentation to everyone like we did last time. Cool. You don't want that. You guys don't want that for. Hopefully, I will. Yeah.
We'll put it up on the website as well for tonight's meeting.
Yes, now we just need to review minutes.
And I would ask that perhaps someone, if they haven't already, responds to Mr. Brown. The email with the questions.
First time.
Yeah,
I've
I
been
did,
hearing of it.
I did forward
you
it,
did.
right?
You did.
Okay. Just wanna make sure. I just feel like I did reply to Dale. He was at trick or treat last night, and I told him that, that I had forwarded it to you guys and that I would discuss it tonight. He wasn't sure that he'd be coming tonight, and I don't think I see him attending. But I do think his positions are questions we need to begin to be prepared for, because we're gonna hear them from other folks as we continue to advance, so. Probably not a bad idea at some point. To just kind of address these in general. A resident who raised questions in regard to Brunswick's building this, you're building this. How does it all fit together for that portion?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's.
That? I'll second.
Second. Perfect. Since we already did number 7, we can adjourn the meeting unless anybody has anything else to add. Meeting adjourned 6:21. Well, do you want to?
Bye, Kathy.
Was that?